up the issue of fear here, given the fact that so many people are
Yeah.
fearful right now, that there's anxiety. That energy in and of itself troubles me, because I think if you have so much of that, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
But I think
that's what's
part
going to be surrounding us, and that
That's
energy is
all
going to be
about
around
Part
us.
of the fear, part of the fear is we haven't laid this over our economy. For instance, if you take this discussion right now and lay it over, who's in the news right now? General Motors.
Right.
What's the fear? General Motors is going to die. We are so fearful of losing General Motors that have we practiced intellectual honesty and said, well, what if we let it die, just as a concept,
It's the American process.
and we saved the towns, and we saved, and we created, and we
We started making
reinvented,
cars as
and
good
we
as-
and we shifted our focus. If any time you are fearful of something dying in your own life, you will move into fear, because you won't even give yourself at that point. When you move out, the way to move out of fear is options. Nobody's in fear when they know they have an option. It's all of a sudden it's go, oh, wait a minute. So if I lose this man, if I lose this job, if I lose my money, what are my options? The option is to go to fear or into your creativity. I think what's open now is a tremendous creative center. I think it's interesting that the institutions that we swear cannot die are dying.
Yep.
No matter what we say.
And I live in the world where there are no options. Let's get to the bottom line.
Yeah, with the work that
When
you
you
do.
get to me, the preaching's done,
Right.
the doctrine's done,
Right.
and the talking's done.
That's it.
And it's just me and you, and what you believe is the value of your life and where you think you're going to go because of
Those
that.
are all options.
Okay,
but
really.
It's all options.
But it's if they
Danny,
don't.
it's
if
an
they-
option. It's
but
an
if
option
they-
to go. It's an option to go willingly, or an option to fight every minute of the way.
But
Well-
the conversations, that,
Right?
conversations
Yeah.
that you have, you're
Yeah.
not talking about how many cars you have in the garage. You're
No,
not talking
listen.
about
Right.
how much
It's never-
money you've accumulated, the status that you attained. It's more
never
about
about
the
that.
family
Yeah.
and
It's
the
about-
quality of the life that you have lived, correct?
and what value you have.
What value you have.
Okay, why we wrote this book, I'm 100% agreement with Heidi.
Absolutely.
That world over there is going to be over there, and it doesn't matter what any skeptics are going to think. I don't really care. I appreciate that because I am them. But this happened to me, and I've spent 31 years at the bedside studying it. 31 years,
That's amazing.
tens
Yeah,
of thousands
yeah.
of hours. I mean, every situation in psychology to watch it. What this book is about is, hey, everybody, we're living in a fear-based psychology. Why do you think people are paying attention? It's called the graying world. Baby boomers are the largest single expansion of people in Western conscious. There's 81 million, 78 million of us, and another 7 or 8 million people who come from other countries. Italy cannot finance its aging population. Japan cannot finance its aging its population. Russia can't do it. We can't do it. With $58 billion, $58 trillion in committed obligations in Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, hospital expansion. This is where we are. Well, we have a segment of our population, the largest segment ever, migrating into this position. What we're doing with this book, because I'll believe everything my wife says.
Well, you should.
And listen, I float
Spoken
along.
like a good
Wilma, I float along with it, and I enjoy it. But I live in the ground roots of the last movement you'll make. I see what happens to families. I see what happens to that person in their last hours. I write these books to close that gap. Because if I can prove without any consciousness that the potential that there's a life after this one, and that this closure that happens between that family, there is a spiritual open that's left open that's never closed in Western consciousness, and somebody has to close that gap because we have gone crazy. We've lost our way in our connection to our spiritual identity of our family, what soul groups are, what the process of this life is, the adventure of this life, and what's next. If we can establish that after giving my life to something that happened to me that I didn't have anything to do with, I wouldn't have planned it. And if you look at how I kill myself, about every 10 or 12 years, I do it stylishly. Okay, you know,
With a big,
'cause it's
a
like
lot of
if it's
flair.
in the stars,
a lot
I
of flair.
planned this.
Yeah,
to
you got
happen.
that Leo thing
But what
going
we
on.
want to do is just, I agree with Heidi. We
want to start
live
the
here.
conversation.
If you know what's next, and you can trust the person delivering it, which is Catherine and I, if you can trust the person delivering it, then what's next? you got an idea of, which means you can focus on the issues that are at hand.
Well, what do you think's missing right now where we're not, so that people, okay, there's people who are fearful, there are people who are anxious. Should we just say it's all going to be okay? Or because thoughts are so powerful that it can change the dynamic in a flash? Given what you do, for example, based on that philosophy, do you see a lot of this fear right now happening on the planet?
Yes, but to me it's the background for the people and how they're interacting it to, are they getting busy offering what they do best, who they are best.
Is this a chance for people to think outside the box for the first time?
Absolutely.
Or expand the size of the box.
Fear is the #1 motivator of everything.
No, public speaking.
Yeah, but people have fear of public speaking.
Fear is an amazing motivator. I am seeing in my practice I've never seen my clients become more successful, happier, or healthier than at this time.
Because it's very focused. I have never,
because people are finally getting down to what's real. And when you sweep away everything that isn't and you get to your authentic being, what I call the A factor, when you really get there, then you make choices that are so good for you and everybody around you, and you are, if I dare say, motivated at that moment by love and not fear.
Or when it's all swept away from you by means not out of your hand, because I've seen my 401k.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
So, okay,
Swept it away.
given the fact that you have this knowledge, this background, and you see this 401k slipping away, what comes to mind? Do you say, okay, I know
Start with the biggest fear.
No, you have fear, being in this planet and being in the earth body that you're in, you attach yourself to that feeling?
What is the greatest fear? People's fear of death and the fear of pain. And if you engage that at a point...
But are you like everyone else who has automatically go to that place where you're like, uh-oh, my 401k is slipping, I'm really getting concerned here.
No, we just cry then.
You got to think. No, what I think people need to hold on to as they see everything that they are accustomed to and familiar with slipping away is we start to hold on to what is eternal.
Okay.
That is our spiritual beliefs, our spiritual foundation, our spiritual identity.
And to specifically answer your question, they did a study of monks who had been living in the Himalayas for decades, and they put them into what would be fear-based situations, and they all moved into fear. It was how quickly they came out of it.
Really? Very
That is the
interesting.
decide. If they sat here and said today, I'm not in fear when I get hit by lightning, or my 401k goes from 50,000 to 10,000.
I'm in fear in the second one. I'm not in fear in the first
Okay. Well, let's put it this way. Some sadness, some human emotions doesn't come back, then I say there's something going on that you've disconnected.
Agreed.
But how long you stay there, now that's where the choice comes in. And what you do with it at that point, that's a whole other story.
Really interesting.
And for some people, and I just want to make this point because this is the thing, listen, I've been studying spirituality since I'm 23, so that's 10 years now. And okay, don't laugh that hard. And here's the thing I've seen. Sometimes we move into this bypass where we don't allow ourselves that grieving. We don't allow ourselves that humanness. And it's that connects us to our soul. That's what connects us in. So I say, you know what? I've watched my portfolio go down, and I've said, it made me sad. It didn't keep me there. It didn't stop me. It didn't immobilize me. But give yourself that opportunity. Give yourself those moments.
That's very good advice.
Maybe your next book. What I want to say is your next book should be "Dying is Easy, Comedy is Hard." That's what it should be.
We thought we'd write a book called The Gift of Grieving, or The Gift of Grief. So, as Heidi said, we allow people to understand that there is immortal life. We are eternal, yet it's a very human emotion to grieve and to be sad and to miss the people who have left us. And we must not bypass that.
And if you know what's next, you can focus on living here.
Absolutely.
We are in a decision-making process in the evolution of where our world is. I spent 40 years looking at the Mayans because they hit it pretty well. They describe this period, the collapse and what happens in order for the new to live, the old must pass away. They do all of that.
This is